The battlefield of sparks, the sky burned red as metal fragments fell like rain. The ground shook with the echo of explosions and fire rolled across the broken land. The war between humans and the Varithi Empire had turned this once-living planet into a graveyard of steel. In the middle of this chaos, a lone human pilot named Evan Hale crawled out of his half-destroyed dropship. Smoke rose behind him, his uniform torn, his helmet cracked. His breathing was heavy, but his eyes stayed sharp. He scanned the battlefield. Bodies of both humans and aliens scattered across the burning sand. He could hear plasma fire in the distance and the faint cry of engines dying in the sky. His comms were dead, his rifle almost out of charge, but he kept walking. He was trained never to stop, never to surrender. As he moved through the wreckage, he heard movement among the ruins. The sound was soft but steady, not mechanical, not drone-like. It was someone alive. Evan raised his weapon and crouched. His heart raced. Through the smoke, a figure appeared, tall, armored. Glowing faint blue under the flames, it was an alien warrior. Her silver armor cracked open in places, one arm limp, one eye covered by a shattered visor. The alien turned and pointed her plasma blade at him. Her voice was deep yet strained. "Don't come closer, human," she warned. The translator in Evan's helmet caught the words with a faint glitch. He kept his aim steady but didn't fire. He could see she was injured. Her energy cell blinked weakly on her chest plate. "Her power almost gone. I'm not here to fight," Evan said, his voice low but firm. "You're hurt," the alien growled. "You humans always say that before killing." Evan lowered his weapon slowly. His instinct screamed danger, but something inside told him this alien wasn't an enemy anymore. Not in this broken battlefield. She tried to move, but her leg gave out. Her armor cracked further with a loud hiss. Sparks flew from the joints, and she collapsed onto one knee. Evan rushed forward, grabbing her before she hit the ground. The alien flinched, her claws digging into his arm. "Don't touch me!" she barked. "Don't look." But it was too late. The front panel of her armor broke apart, revealing part of her glowing skin. It shimmered faintly, like liquid light under the surface. Evan looked away instantly. "Easy," he said. "I'm trying to help." Her breathing came in sharp bursts. "Humans are forbidden here," she said weakly. "If my people find you, they'll burn you alive." Evan smirked softly. Wouldn't be the first time someone tried. He tore a piece of cloth from his own suit and wrapped it around the leaking joint of her armor, sealing the energy leak. The alien looked at him with disbelief. "Why help me?" she asked, her voice quieter now. Evan shrugged. "Because leaving you here feels wrong." Thunder rolled above them. A fleet passed overhead. Enemy patrols searching for survivors. Evan pulled her under a fallen hull for cover. The heat from her armor pulsed against his chest. He could feel her trembling. "Trying to stay conscious. You have a name?" he asked. She hesitated, then said, "Corella." "All right, Corella," he replied. "We're going to get you out of this firestorm." Corella laughed weakly. "You are one human against an army." Evan smiled faintly. "Yeah, but I'm hard to kill." The ground shook again as a nearby tank exploded. Metal shards cut through the air. One piece hit Evan's shoulder, burning through the armor. He gritted his teeth but didn't stop. He pulled Corella closer, shielding her from the debris when the smoke cleared. She stared at him, her glowing eyes wide. No human had ever done that for her kind. Not since the war began. Her lips parted as if to say something, but she stopped, ashamed of her own emotion. "We need shelter," Evan said, scanning the horizon. "Can you walk?" She nodded slowly. "I can try." Her voice was quieter now. Not angry, just tired. They moved through the ruins together, every step echoing in the silence after the battle. The distant roars of engines grew fainter as the storm clouds swallowed the light. Corella stumbled again, and Evan caught her. Their eyes met through cracked visors. "Don't look," she whispered again, softer this time, as if afraid of what he might see. He didn't answer, he just nodded, letting her lean on him in that brief moment. The human and alien stood side by side, enemies by birth, allies by chance. Behind them, the battlefield burned brighter. The smoke painted the sky in orange and red. Evan looked back once and whispered, "Let's live through this." "Warrior," and deep within her fading armor, a faint blue spark flickered, not just of power, but of something dangerous and new, something neither of them could yet name. But the war had just changed forever. Enemy or ally night had fallen over the burning world. The battlefield that once screamed with gunfire now whispered only with the sound of ash falling from the sky. Evan and Corella hid deep inside the remains of a crashed alien carrier. The walls still hummed faintly with old energy, blue lights flickering like dying stars. Evan sat near a broken console, his shoulder bleeding under a makeshift bandage. His eyes stayed sharp, scanning every sound. Every step he took echoed too loudly. And every shadow felt alive. Corella sat across from him, her armor sparking softly as it tried to repair itself. Her glowing eyes watched him with a mix of confusion and anger. "You shouldn't have helped me," she said finally, her voice rough but quieter now. "My people will hunt you for this." Evan smirked. "They can get in line." She tilted her head, her gaze cold yet curious. "Humans always speak like they do not fear death." He looked up, the flicker of light catching the scar on his face. "We don't fear dying," he said. "We just hate leaving things unfinished." For a long moment they said nothing. Only the crackle of energy filled the air. Outside, lightning flashed across the ruined city, revealing towers half-eaten by fire. Corella's hand trembled slightly as she tried to fix a broken piece of her chest plate. Her armor core pulsed erratically. Emitting a warning tone, she cursed softly in her language. Evan noticed the glow growing unstable. He moved closer, ignoring her glare. "Let me see that," he said. "Don't touch it," she hissed. "You'll trigger the failsafe." But as she tried to stop him, a surge of energy burst from the damaged joint, throwing her back. The glow from her chest brightened dangerously. Evan reacted instantly, grabbing a broken power conduit and jamming it into the ground to absorb the surge. The light dimmed again when the smoke cleared. She looked at him, stunned, breathing hard. "You risked your life," she said slowly. "For me again." Evan shrugged lightly. "You'd do the same, right?" She didn't answer, but the faint flicker of emotion crossed her alien eyes. Something soft and hard to read, then a sudden sound echoed outside. The low mechanical click of scout drones. Evan froze. Corella's head snapped toward the sound. "They are searching for survivors," she whispered. "If they find us, they'll alert the command." Evan moved silently toward the door. Peering through the gap, 3 drones hovered just beyond the wreckage. Scanning with red sensors, he motioned for her to stay down. But Corella ignored him, her armor crackling with faint power. "I can take them," she whispered. Evan shook his head. "Your power core is unstable. One wrong pulse and you'll explode." Her sharp glare met his. "Better to die fighting than hiding." Evan smiled faintly. "Yeah, but dying doesn't win wars." Before she could reply, he sprinted out into the rain of ash, crouched low, and tossed a broken flare toward the drones. The flare burst into light. Confusing their sensors, he fired twice, striking the first one down. The other 2 turned immediately, firing back. Plasma blasts tore through the air. Corella gritted her teeth, ignoring the pain. She lifted her broken gauntlet and fired a single blue beam, precise and deadly. The second drone exploded midair. The third turned toward her, ready to strike, but Evan leapt forward, slamming his rifle butt into its scanner and ripping the power coil free. The drone fell dead with a hiss of smoke. For a moment, silence returned. Rain fell softly again, cooling the flames when Evan turned. Corella was standing there, her armor glowing faintly, the blue light reflecting off her skin. She looked at him, not as an enemy now, but as someone she could not understand. "Why risk yourself?" she asked again. He looked at her with a small, tired smile. "Because someone has to." Corella stared at him longer than before, then lowered her weapon. "You humans are strange," she said quietly. "You fight with no reason, help with no gain." Evan laughed softly. "Maybe that's why we scare the galaxy." Suddenly, her armor core beeped again, flashing a new symbol. She looked down, her eyes widening. "No," she whispered, "it's not a malfunction." "It's a tracker," Evan frowned. "A what?" "They can see us," she said, her voice shaking for the first time. "My command unit will come, and they'll kill you for touching me." Evan grabbed his pack and started gathering his gear. "Then we better not be here when they arrive." Corella hesitated, watching him move so fast, so determined. "You would run with me?" she asked softly. He turned to her, eyes calm. "We started surviving together, we finish it together." Outside, the night grew brighter as distant lights rose on the horizon. Ships descending, searching, hunting. Corella looked one last time at the human beside her, then nodded slowly. Very well, human, she said. We are allies. For now, Evan smirked. For now works. As they slipped into the dark, lightning split the clouds above. The trackers glowed faintly on the broken armor, but deep inside Corella's eyes, another light began to form. One not of rage or duty, but of something she didn't yet want to name. The war had made monsters of them both. But tonight, under the storm's shadow, something else had begun to rise. Something the galaxy had never seen before. A fragile alliance born in fire and bound by a single unspoken promise. Survival. Together, the broken mask, the morning came slow. Heavy with mist and smoke, the sky above was a dull gray, painted with drifting ash and the silent glow of destroyed ships. Evan and Corella moved through the ruined canyon, their steps quiet, their breath forming small clouds in the cold air. They had been walking all night, avoiding scanners and patrols. Every distant roar of engines made them freeze. Every flicker of light made them hide. Corella's armor was damaged beyond repair now. One shoulder plate had fallen off completely, the glowing blue veins beneath her alien skin pulsing with soft energy. Evan noticed but said nothing. He respected her silence, the same way she respected his stubbornness. Human, she said finally, breaking the quiet. Why do you fight this war? Evan shrugged lightly. Because if we don't, someone else decides what happens to us. She turned her head toward him, her sharp eyes unreadable. And you think you can win against the Council? He smiled faintly. We don't need to win. We just need to make them remember we exist. For a long time, there was only the sound of wind whistling through broken metal. They reached a ridge overlooking a wide crater. Once a city, now a pit of glass. At the center stood a tall black obelisk, still intact, flickering with ancient energy. Corella stopped, her face tightening. That's my people's relay tower, she said quietly. It was our command post. Evan studied it. Looks half dead to me. She nodded. Inside is the communication core. If we can reach it, I can disable my tracker signal. Before Evan could reply, the ground beneath them trembled. A deep rumble echoed through the canyon. He crouched, scanning the area, and spotted 3 hovering crafts in the distance. Scouts again, he muttered. We better move. Corella hesitated, her gaze fixed on the obelisk. If I don't disable it, they'll find us anyway. Evan sighed, checking his rifle. Then we move fast. They descended into the crater, the air thick with static energy. The deeper they went, the louder the hum became. Corella walked ahead, her hand glowing faintly as she touched old alien symbols on the walls. The ruins responded to her touch. Lights flickering awake, Evan followed quietly, watching her with curiosity. You know this place well, he said. She gave a bitter smile. I was born to serve it, he frowned. Born to serve? She looked at him, her voice low. I am not just a warrior, human. I was bred and trained to guard the royal bloodline. My armor carries the crest of House Vareth. Evan blinked, realizing the weight of her words. Your royal guard, she nodded slowly. The last one still breathing. For the first time, Evan saw something different in her. Not anger, not pride, but grief. The kind that hides behind iron discipline. He wanted to say something, but the moment was broken by a sudden mechanical shriek. Drones, 5 of them. Hovering from the tunnel above, Evan fired first. Hitting the closest one, sparks flew. Corella dashed forward, her movements sharp despite her damaged leg. She grabbed a spear-like piece of debris and impaled one drone through its core. The others fired beams of blue plasma, forcing Evan to dive behind a pillar. 2 left. He shouted. Corella didn't answer. Her armor glowed dangerously, unstable. She raised her arm and unleashed a pulse of raw energy. The explosion was bright, violent and full of fury. When the dust settled, the drones were gone, and Corella was on her knees, her armor hissing. Evan rushed to her, grabbing her shoulders. You're burning yourself out! She gasped, eyes flickering with pain. I had no choice. Her armor cracked again, large pieces falling away, revealing more of her glowing form beneath. Elegant, luminous, scarred, and strangely human in shape. Evan looked away. You're losing the suit. Don't look, she said again. But this time her voice wasn't commanding. It was trembling, almost afraid. He turned his face aside, but his words were calm. It's fine, I'm not here to judge what you look like. Corella looked down at herself, the glow of her alien body reflecting in the glassy ground. Among my kind, exposure means dishonor, she whispered. We are never seen without the mask. Evan smiled faintly. Among mine, hiding too long means forgetting who you are. Something in his words broke her silence. For the first time, she didn't look like a warrior. She looked like someone trying to remember how to breathe. She stared at him. You humans, you live by emotion, not command. He met her eyes. Maybe that's why we survive. Then deep in the tower, a voice echoed through the chamber. Cold, metallic, and full of authority. Commander Corella of House Vareth, the voice said. You are ordered to surrender and deliver the human for termination. Corella froze. Her expression unreadable. Evan raised his weapon instinctively, scanning the shadows. Who the hell is that? She took a step back. It's my superior, she whispered. They found us through the signal. Guess the tracker worked, Evan muttered. She turned toward him slowly, her glowing eyes conflicted. If I do not obey, they will destroy the entire sector. Evan's voice was steady. And if you do obey, they'll kill me. Corella looked down at her cracked armor, the crest of her house fading as power drained from it. The mask she had lived behind. Duty. Discipline, obedience, and began to fracture. Finally, she whispered, Then I will not obey. Evan smiled faintly. Knew you'd say that. The tower lights flashed red as alarms blared. The ancient structure came alive, sealing them inside-outside. Ships began descending, soldiers preparing for war. But deep within the tower, a single alien warrior and a human stood side by side. No longer enemies, no longer strangers. The galaxy might call it betrayal, but to them it was freedom, and for the first time, Corella's voice carried no command, only a promise. I will protect you. Human, Evan looked at her cracked armor, glowing softly in the dark, and whispered back, And I'll protect you too. The war had started something no army could stop. Trust. Born between species that were never meant to meet, and as the tower roared with enemy fire, both of them prepared to fight back. Together, the secret within the armor. The tower shook with the echo of explosions. The floor cracked beneath their feet as the enemy ships unleashed fire from above. Evan and Corella ran through the narrow corridors of the ancient structure, blue sparks falling from broken walls. The air smelled of ozone and smoke. The whole place groaned like it was alive and dying at the same time. Corella's breathing grew heavy, the glow from her armor dimming fast. The energy core, she said, her voice uneven. It's destabilizing. Evan looked back at her, his face streaked with dust. Can you shut it down? She shook her head. Not without access to the control room. Then we get there, he said firmly, his hand gripping her arm to steady her as another tremor shook the ground. They reached a large chamber deep within the tower, filled with ancient alien machinery, glowing blue conduits, and tall crystal pylons that pulsed like a beating heart. The hum in the air was stronger here. Almost alive, Corella stepped forward. Touching one of the panels, symbols flickered beneath her hand. Lines of alien code lighting up in waves. Evan stood back, watching the flicker of blue across her skin. He had seen many alien species, but none like her. There was a grace even in her exhaustion, a power beneath the fear. This tower isn't just a command post, she said quietly. It's a vault. A vault? Evan asked. She nodded slowly. It contains the master energy core, the source that powers every weapon in the Varithi fleets. Evan's expression darkened. So your armor's connected to that? Corella's gaze met his, silent but full of truth. Yes, my armor holds a fragment of the same core. Evan frowned. That means, if it detonates, she said softly, the explosion will destroy half this planet. Silence hung between them. Heavy as the dust in the air, Evan rubbed his face, his voice low. So when your armor started to fail? She nodded. I became the weapon. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Evan said quietly, You were never meant to survive this war, were you? Corella looked away, her eyes dim. We were told it was an honor to die as power, to burn as light for the Empire. Evan clenched his fists. That's not honor. That's slavery. Her voice trembled slightly. And yet, I obeyed. She pressed her hand against a broken terminal, sending lines of data across the chamber. A small hologram appeared, showing a map of the galaxy and red zones where the Varithi war cores had detonated before. Entire worlds erased. Evan stared at it, his jaw tightening. You're telling me there are more of these? She nodded. Hundreds hidden across systems. Linked through energy resonance, the Council calls them the Sons of Vareth. Evan's eyes darkened. And they think humans are dangerous. Before they could speak further, a deep metallic voice echoed through the chamber again. Commander Corella, it said coldly, your defiance is recorded. You carry restricted energy property of the Varithi Command. Surrender or be purged. Corella's armor flared bright blue, her body trembling under the pressure. They are trying to overload the link, she gasped. They want me to explode. Evan moved quickly, grabbing her shoulders, then break the link. I can't, she cried. The core is bonded to my life force. Evan looked around desperately, his eyes landing on the main conduit that pulsed from the floor to the ceiling. If we overload that tower core manually, he said, could it cut your connection? Corella's eyes widened. It could, but it might destroy this whole structure. He grinned slightly. Then let's make it count. They ran to the central pillar. Sparks flying around them, Evan tore open a power relay, connecting his weapon battery into the circuit. You're insane, she muttered. Been told that before, he said, pulling a lever. Electricity surged through the room, lightning crawling up the walls. Corella screamed as the bond between her armor and the tower fought to hold. The blue glow flared around her, her body shaking. The room turned blinding white. Evan held the conduit steady, his voice echoing through the roar. Hold on, Corella. I can't, she shouted, her voice cracking. It's too much. Fight it, he yelled. You're not their weapon anymore. The explosion that followed was not of destruction, but release. The energy wave expanded, burning the code out of the air. The red symbols on her armor vanished, replaced by a soft golden light. The hum stopped and the tower fell silent. When Evan opened his eyes, the air was still. He was on his back. His armor cracked, his ears ringing. Corella lay nearby, motionless. The glow from her body had faded to a faint shimmer. He crawled to her, touching her wrist. Hey, stay with me, he whispered. Her eyes fluttered open, dim but alive. The link is broken, she said softly. I am free. Evan smiled weakly. Good. Because we're not done yet. She looked at him, her face calm now. You broke my chains, human. He shook his head. No, you did that yourself for a long time. Neither moved. The tower above them cracked slowly, letting beams of sunlight through the smoke. Corella looked up at the light. It's strange, she said. I never noticed how warm it looks. Evan smiled. You've been inside metal too long. She turned toward him, her eyes softer now. And you, human, have a strange heart. He chuckled. So I've heard. But their brief peace was broken by the distant sound of engines. The command fleet had found them again. The sky outside roared as new shadows descended. Corella stood, her armor still cracked but glowing differently now. They will not stop, she said. They will hunt us both. Evan loaded his rifle, his tone calm but certain. Then we make them regret it. Corella turned her face toward the fire-lit horizon. The human stood beside her, fragile yet fearless. For the first time in her life, she did not feel alone. The tower behind them burned quietly, but inside that fire was the birth of something new. The first act of rebellion from a weapon who learned how to choose. And as the fleet descended from the clouds, Corella whispered, Let them come. The betrayal signal. The morning sun rose weakly through a haze of smoke. The tower ruins glowed faintly behind them, casting long shadows over the ash-covered valley. Evan and Corella moved fast. Their steps careful but steady, every direction held danger, and every sound felt like a trap waiting to spring. Corella's armor was running on minimal power now, the once bright blue now a soft amber glow. She walked slower, her eyes fixed on the sky where faint trails of ships moved in formation. They are spreading the search, she said, her voice calm but cold. Evan glanced up, tightening his grip on the rifle. Then we keep moving before they lock in. They crossed a field of twisted wreckage, shattered walkers, broken blades, scattered helmets. The war had left nothing but ghosts behind. After hours of walking, they found a hidden cave beneath a collapsed cliff. Inside, faint blue crystals pulsed along the walls, casting soft light over their faces. Evan dropped his bag and leaned against the rock. We can rest here a bit, he said. Corella hesitated, then nodded. Her breathing was uneven. She sat quietly, her armor humming softly like a heartbeat. For a while, neither spoke. Evan cleaned his weapon. Checking the last power cells, Corella studied him silently. You fight like someone who has lost much, she said finally. He smirked. You could say that. Her gaze didn't leave him. A home? He shook his head. People? She nodded slowly, her voice low. Loss makes warriors, but it also makes ghosts. Evan looked at her, the flicker of the crystal light reflected in his eyes. Yeah, maybe that's what we are. Then, faintly a beep echoed through the cave. Evan froze. He looked down. His wrist device flashed red. He tapped it, frowning. That's not mine. Corella's expression darkened. She looked at her chest plate, the faint amber light now blinking faster. No, she whispered. It can't be. What is it? He asked. She pressed her hand against the armor, her voice shaking for the first time. The beacon. It reactivated. Evan's eyes widened. You mean, they found us, she said, rising to her feet. They used the energy core to reboot the signal. A deep rumble rolled through the valley outside. Ships moving closer, scanners locking onto their location. Evan cursed under his breath. Can you disable it? Corella's hands glowed as she tried to override the command. But sparks burst from her gauntlet. It's locked remotely, she said. I can't break it. Evan grabbed his gear. Then we run. But before they reached the exit, a distant explosion shook the ground, a blast from orbit striking near the tower ruins. The shockwave hit the cave mouth, dust falling around them. Corella looked at the flashing light on her chest, her voice heavy with guilt. They will not stop until they erase every trace of me. Evan turned to her. Then let's make sure they regret trying. They ran deeper into the canyon. But soon a metallic whine filled the air. Dozens of hunter drones appeared overhead. Surrounding them like a steel storm, Evan aimed his rifle, firing until the last cell burned out. He hit a few, but there were too many. We're surrounded, he shouted. Corella raised her arm, unleashing a shockwave of raw energy. Drones exploded in midair, but each blast drained her further. Her glow flickered weaker. Stop, Evan yelled. You'll kill yourself. She gritted her teeth. Better me than both of us. Then suddenly her armor flared white, and a coded transmission burst into the sky. Evan saw the signal flare through the smoke, a pulse that carried far beyond sight. What did you just do? Corella froze, staring at him. I didn't send that. Evan's jaw tightened. Then who did? A second later, a voice crackled through his broken comm. Mechanical, emotionless and cruelly familiar. Human Unit 47E. Identification confirmed, it said. Thank you for leading us to the target. Evan froze. What the hell? Corella turned sharply. What does that mean? Before he could answer, his own wrist pad projected a faint hologram, the insignia of a human fleet intelligence seal. Evan's eyes widened, realization hitting like a punch. No, this can't be. Corella stepped back, her gaze full of fury and disbelief. You were marked, she hissed. They used you as bait. Evan's voice was low, full of regret. I didn't know. I swear, but the damage was done above them. The sky filled with both human and Varethi ships, two sides converging on the same signal. They both want the core, Corella whispered, her voice breaking. And you brought them to it. Evan stepped closer. Corella, listen to me. But she raised her weapon, her armor glowing faintly again. No, human, you listen. I trusted you. The wind howled through the canyon, firelight flashing across their faces. Evan didn't raise his gun. His voice was quiet, steady. You should still trust me. She hesitated, her eyes trembling. Why? Because I didn't betray you, he said softly. They betrayed both of us. The sound of descending ships grew louder. Shadows covered the land. Corella lowered her weapon slightly, confusion and pain mixing in her eyes. Then what do we do now? Evan looked up at the sky, full of human and alien warships ready to fight. We make sure neither side wins. He held out his hand, scarred and steady. Together? Corella looked at it for a long moment, the echo of betrayal still in her heart. Then slowly, she placed her glowing hand in his. Together, she said quietly. The ground shook again. Engines screamed overhead, and the first blast hit the valley, but in that instant, something greater than war began. Two enemies turned fugitives, hunted by everyone, bound by nothing but survival and trust. And as the dust rose around them, Corella whispered, If the galaxy wants a weapon, then it will have one. Evan smiled darkly. Let's give them hell. The heart beneath the steel, the valley burned under two suns, one real and one made of fire from the ships above. Metal rained from the sky, shards of wreckage cutting through smoke and dust. The war that had followed them finally collided in one place. Humans and Varethi firing at each other from orbit, neither realizing that both sides were chasing ghosts. Evan and Corella hid behind a fallen structure, the roar of plasma blasts shaking the ground. His rifle was gone, his armor cracked, her suit was half destroyed. The glow beneath it pulsing weakly like a fading heartbeat. They're killing each other for nothing, Evan said bitterly. We could end this if we destroy the signal core. Corella nodded slowly, her eyes fierce even through exhaustion. It lies beneath the valley, in the heart of the relay field. He looked at her glowing chest plate. You mean that thing inside you? She hesitated, then whispered, Yes, the core inside me is the last link. If I shut it down, the fleets will lose their lock. But if I fail, you die, he finished quietly. She nodded once, and you, human, will finally be free of me. He gave a small smile. Not the freedom I want. The air trembled as another blast hit nearby. Flames curled up from the ground. Evan helped her stand. Her weight was light, but her steps were unsteady. Together they ran through the storm, moving from one wreck to another, the sky glowing orange above them. Corella's voice came between breaths. When you found me, I thought you were weak, Evan chuckled tiredly. I thought you were trying to kill me. She smiled faintly. Perhaps both were true. They reached the broken ridge where the energy field shimmered faintly beneath the sand. Corella knelt and pressed her hands to the ground. Symbols flared around her fingers, glowing blue lines weaving across the earth. This is it, she said. The relay chamber is below. Evan crouched beside her. How do we get in? Her eyes met his. We don't dig. We dive. Before he could question her, the ground opened like water, pulling them both downward in a flash of light. They landed inside a vast underground dome, metallic, silent, filled with suspended crystals that pulsed with life. At the center stood a giant core, humming softly like a heartbeat of the world. Corella stepped forward, her eyes reflecting its light. This is the true heart of Vareth, she whispered. Evan looked around, awestruck. It's beautiful, she nodded, and deadly. As she approached the central platform, her armor began to react. Lines of light racing across her skin. The air vibrated. Energy surged between her and the core like threads of lightning. She gasped, her knees trembling. Evan rushed forward, grabbing her shoulders. What's happening? The link is reforming, she said through clenched teeth. It recognizes me as part of it. He held her tighter. Then break it again. She shook her head, her eyes glowing brighter. I can't, not this time. It needs a balance. Another life force. Evan stared at her, realizing what she meant. No, you're not doing this alone. She looked at him, her expression soft but sad. If you stay, you'll die. He smiled faintly. Then I guess I stay. Before she could protest, he placed his hand over hers on the core. The system flared to life. Streams of light wrapped around both of them. The air filled with pure sound, ancient and powerful. Corella cried out, Human, you'll be burned. He grinned weakly. I've been burned before. The light spread. Forming a sphere around them, the pain was unbearable. Energy crawled through their bodies like fire. But through it all, Evan held her hand, refusing to let go. In that blinding light, Corella saw flashes, his memories, his planet, the blue oceans, the laughter of children, the feeling of rain, things she had never known, things her kind had long forgotten. Tears formed in her glowing eyes. You carry such warmth, she whispered. He looked at her, voice strained. And you carry such strength. The energy reached its peak. The ground shook violently, above them in orbit. Every ship's sensor went dark. Their targeting vanished. Their systems froze. The war stopped in an instant, confused silence falling across the stars. Back in the dome, the light dimmed slowly. Corella fell to her knees, the glow fading from her armor. Evan collapsed beside her. Barely breathing, she turned to him, panic breaking her composure. No, stay with me. He smiled faintly, his hand trembling as it reached for hers. Looks like we did it. She gripped his hand tightly. You fool, she whispered. You gave everything. He looked up at her with tired eyes. Worth it. She felt something deep within her chest, not the hum of a core, but the pulse of a heart she never knew she had. Human, she whispered softly. You have changed me. Outside, the sky cleared, the fleets withdrew in silence. The war that had burned worlds ended without a victor. Inside the quiet dome, Corella lifted Evan's head onto her lap, the faintest smile on her lips. You said you wouldn't follow alien rules, she murmured. And yet, you broke the greatest one. You made me feel. The light of the core dimmed to nothing, leaving only the soft glow from her eyes and the slow, steady breath of the human beside her. Above them, for the first time in years, the world of ashes saw a sunrise not born from fire. The warriors promised the first true sunrise in years bathed the ruins in gold. The smoke had faded, the thunder of war gone. All that remained was silence and the slow hum of life returning. Deep within the fallen valley, among the broken towers and glass fields, two figures lay beneath the light. One human, one alien, both changed forever. Corella sat quietly beside Evan, her cracked armor gleaming faintly like a second skin. The core inside her chest no longer pulsed with war. It glowed soft and warm, like the memory of a heartbeat. She had linked it with his, and in doing so, she had learned something the Empire had erased long ago: compassion. Evan stirred weakly, his breath shallow but steady. Corella's hand rested over his, her claws no longer sharp, only gentle. You are stubborn, human, she whispered. You refused to die when even the stars gave up. He smiled faintly, his voice hoarse. Told you. I'm hard to kill, she lowered her head, her silver hair falling across her face. You gave your life to save mine, and still you jest, he looked at her softly. It was never about saving you. It was about saving something worth believing in. Outside, the world had changed. The fleets above had gone silent. The Verethi command lost their network, and the human armada stood down. Every signal in the galaxy that once screamed war now carried confusion and peace. For the first time, both sides looked at the stars and saw quiet instead of fire. Corella helped Evan sit up, her voice calm but strong. You broke the Council's grip. You ended a war my people began. He shook his head slowly. No, we did. Her eyes softened, glowing like twin moons. You always speak of we, even when you stand alone. Evan smiled tiredly. That's what humans do. We stand for each other. Even when it hurts, they sat together under the dawn. The wind carried the scent of ash and rain. The tower behind them was nothing more than rubble now, but from its ruins, green shoots of strange glowing plants began to rise. Life was returning. Corella looked at the horizon, her voice low. The Empire will come for me again. They will not forgive this. Evan's eyes met hers. Then they'll have to go through both of us. She tilted her head, a faint smirk on her lips. You would fight the stars again, human? He grinned faintly. Only if you're beside me. For a moment, there was peace between them, the kind that words could not hold. Then Corella stood and turned toward the horizon. The glow in her armor shifted, spreading into her wings of light. Energy flowing freely now, not as a weapon, but as a living part of her. I will rebuild, she said softly, not as a soldier, but as something new. Evan watched her, still weak but smiling. Then the galaxy better prepare. She looked back at him, her voice almost a whisper. For what? For a warrior with a heart, he said. She paused, then knelt beside him, her hand brushing his cheek. You are strange, human. You turn enemies into friends, weapons into hope, and war into something I can no longer hate. He smiled faintly. Guess that's our thing. Above them, the last of the clouds drifted away, revealing the clean blue of a sky untouched by fire. Birds, real or maybe reborn from long dormancy, began to sing faintly from the ridges. Corella looked toward the distant stars. My people will call me traitor. Your people will call you lost. Evan nodded. Let them talk. We'll write something better. She turned to him, her eyes shining brighter now. Then let this be our promise. He raised his hand weakly, touching hers. Together, in that single word, a bond deeper than duty was born, one that no fleet or empire could break. Years later, the galaxy would speak in whispers of that day. They would say that a human and an alien warrior stopped the fire that devoured worlds. They would say that when the last tower fell, the universe held its breath. And for once, it did not fear humanity, it learned from it, but for now, the story ended where it began, under a burning sky that finally cooled, with a soldier who refused to die and a warrior who learned to feel. Corella looked down at him, her voice gentle as the dawn. Rest, human. You've already changed the stars. Evan's eyes closed, peace settling over him. Wake me when the galaxy stops being stupid, he murmured. She smiled softly, watching the horizon blaze to life. And when the light touched her face, the world saw what no war ever could. Not a weapon, Not a queen, but a protector, standing guard over the last promise of humanity, a promise born not in fire, but in heart. The war ended that day, but their legend began.